Hello, it's Jack and welcome to Redmen Academy. I'm delighted today to be joined by Emily Drakeley of Birmingham Fan TV. Emily, we're going to talk about Jude Bellingham. Obviously, I've spoke about this lad a lot with James over the last few weeks and months since the links came out to Liverpool, Man United, and Dortmund. More so Manchester United and Dortmund, but I wanted to get a Birmingham fan's point of view, obviously, on what he's like as a player and more information about this lad. But before we go on to that, just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do for. You've got an account called Birmingham Fan TV, don't you?
Yes, so yeah, my name is Emily. I help run Birmingham Fan TV with my partner. So we started that up probably about 2 seasons ago now. So we mainly do match previews, reviews, and podcasts just on Birmingham City. So yeah, that's us.
Brilliant. Well, obviously, let's get straight into the video. Obviously, Jude Bellingham. He's not so much linked to Liverpool, but he's a really good youngster nonetheless. And I think he's going to be a name that we hear a lot over the summer. He's known by many in England already. I think a lot of people know his name, but not really his game. But how would you describe young Jude Bellingham and the impact he's had on Birmingham in his short career so far?
I think he's been absolutely amazing for us. I think it's really hard to put into words how impactful he's actually been for us. So he came in really at the start of the season. We all knew that he was going to be playing for us this season at 16 years old, and he looks like he is a well-established midfielder really, or he can play number 10. He's played all over the park this season really. He's very versatile. He's played number 10, he's played on the wings, he's played in the centre, played holding midfielder, attacking midfielder. He's played so many roles and he's excelled in all of them, and I think that says a lot about him as a player. His maturity is incredible beyond his years, and his ability is, I've never seen anything like it. He just looks so confident, and you almost just know that he knows that he's good, but he's not one of those players that has a big ego. He's very down to earth. After the game, he'll come over and speak to the fans, and he'll hand out shirts, and he's a very nice young lad, and he's very polite and courteous. But on the pitch, he's just next level, and he's fantastic to watch.
Obviously, to compare him to another youngster that we have at Liverpool, Harvey Elliott, there's obviously been this season where we started to see glimpses of how good Harvey Elliott is, and we sort of recognise that he's going to be a very good player in the future. With Jude Bellingham, was there any of that at Birmingham, or did he just come from nowhere really, and now he's the star he is today?
No, we've known about him for quite a while now. He's been part of the academy. He's been very much in and around the team. But I think with last season there was a few issues with managers wanting to put him in the team. But he has been around for a while. He's been playing for England at the youth levels, and he has been a player that I think has been slightly overlooked by obviously the media, because he doesn't play for a big team. He plays for Birmingham City in the Championship, and we don't get as much publicity over here, so we don't get that limelight, which for us is great in that sense, because no one's really picked up on him apart from Blues fans and local area fans that have actually been looking at our youth and seeing them grow. So he has been around, but he hasn't had the limelight that Harvey Elliott has obviously had.
Yeah, I'm quite lucky. My granddad's a Brummie and a big Birmingham fan, so he knows about the channel. And straight away, when this lad was coming through, it was very much keep an eye on this lad, and he does look like a very good talent from what I've seen of him. He looks like an outstanding player. A lot of the time though, I've heard this link to Steven Gerrard, and people comparing his game to Steven Gerrard. Emily, do you think that's a bit too soon, or do you genuinely think this guy could be of that level?
I think he could easily be of that level. I think he's 16 now. He's nearly 17, but the way that he's playing at the moment is not hugely far off Premier League standard week in week out. I don't think. I think it's difficult because you compare these players saying, oh, they're like this, they're like that, but actually if you put them in a real life scenario, you never know how they're gonna play and pan out. But I think from what I've seen of him this season, if he continues his development, and whether he stays or goes, whoever nurtures him and helps him grow and gives him the rest time that he needs, because he's so young, obviously, to help his body develop, and he's managed in the right way, I think he could easily. And that's hard to say because Steven Gerrard is incredible and was incredible. And it's hard to say he'd be on that level, but I think he could easily be on that level.
So obviously you're saying that. So I assume you weren't shocked when obviously you've heard these massive fees being thrown around for Jude Bellingham, and what clubs like Manchester United and Dortmund are willing to pay, or seemingly willing to pay.
I wasn't that shocked really because I think because I obviously watch him week in week out and I see his talent, and obviously the way that the market is at the moment, good players go for millions of pounds, and I think that at the moment it's no matter what age, but I think a lot of people will look at it and think for a 16-year-old 30, 40, 50, 60 million pounds, euros, whatever it may be, that's a lot of money. However, I think it's probably the sell on value as well. If they nurture him, like I said before, if they take him in, whoever, my personal preference would be Dortmund, just because of what they've done with youth players from England before, e.g. Jadon Sancho, and they've nurtured them and allowed them to grow. I think spending 30, 40 million on a player, and you may have him for 5, 6, 7 years and allow him to grow and become the best that he can be, I think, and you sell him on, you easily make that money back. So I think for us, it would be amazing to have that money. We don't want to let him go, but the way we would want him to stay for as long as possible. But I think he is easily worth that money because of all the attributes that he has already in his game and his age.
Absolutely. Obviously, this is a lad that at 16 years old stands out a lot, and is one of the best players in a championship side who has been mid-table this season. Obviously, there's been highs and lows as there always is for Birmingham City this season. But you found the real talent here, but it's not just Jude, is it? He's got a younger brother who is also apparently a very, very good talent and a star in the making. And is this part of the reason why you think Birmingham may be willing to let Jude go? Is it because you've got a bigger star in the making in his brother?
I'm not sure, and my concern would be if Jude go, would Job go? I don't think he will, but that may be a concern, because of his age. I think he's 14, 15, Jude's brother. He's coming through the ranks as well. I don't know too much about him personally, but what I've been told through the grapevine is that he is as good, if not better, than Jude. But he plays a different position, so it's easy if you're looking at a different position to say, oh, he's better. Well, obviously he would be in that position compared to Jude, but I think that we'd only be willing to let Jude go for the right money and for the right placement for him, because I think he is a Blues fan. We value him as not just a player, but we want him to do well. So we'd have to obviously pick the right club for him as well and work with him on that. But I don't know. I'd like his brother to come through, but I don't know whether he'd stay with us or whether he'd go as well.
I think the interesting thing for me is we always like to see young talents doing well, and I think Jude Bellingham is a lad with a lot of potential to be a great player in the future. I'm always careful about comparing these players to big players, but he does have a lot of quality, and there are a lot of similarities to Steven Gerrard, and at such a young age, maybe we may see a very, very, very good player in the future, and maybe Jude can become one of the best players in the world. Who knows at this stage? He's so young, and it's hard to judge at this point in time. I think for his progression, he either has to stay at Birmingham for another year or go to Dortmund, a team who would probably use him more than Manchester United, where there is a worry where this lad could rot. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been superb with managing young players at Manchester United, but over the years they haven't got a good record of managing players in a similar circumstance to Jude Bellingham. Is that also sort of where you stand on this, or are you in sort of the mindset of just take the money and run?
No, I completely agree with you. I think that's what I've said previously, is that I wouldn't want him to go to a club, like, no offense, to like a Manchester United and sit in the reserves, because no doubt that I think him getting regular game time or being in environment where they nurture youth players and have a reputation of nurturing good youth players, would be a lot more beneficial to him than being at a big club that Man United is, but just being there and not really doing anything. And like you say, I think if he went, he may just rot there, because I don't think he'd get the opportunity to play. And I think that is probably the swinging point for us fans, that we'd rather have him go to Dortmund, because we know that then he'd be able to achieve his potential.
We saw with Wilfried Zaha a similar thing with Manchester United, didn't we? And it's
Yeah.
obviously important that Jude Bellingham doesn't go along that route. And one thing I think would be good for him is if he does sign for either club, Manchester United or Dortmund, is if he goes back on loan to Birmingham again for a season. I think another season in the Championship would help him. And, I don't think he'd be against that. We've seen, as you said, he's a Birmingham fan himself. I've seen his first goal for the club, which obviously was a deflection and, quite a lucky goal. But, he's in the fans and he's celebrating well, and it clearly meant a lot to him. So it's whether at this point he wants to go to a club like that as well. Obviously, there's no doubt that he probably does. And there's a massive pull to Dortmund and Manchester United and clubs like that. But it may be that this lad is wanting to hold fire, Emily, and wanting to stay at Birmingham for a bit longer.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that he wants to stay. I don't think he wants to go at all, actually. But I think with our club and the way things are at the moment, obviously with the EFL, we have to obviously look at our finances, and I think selling Jude would massively benefit our financial situation. We don't want to sell him, obviously, but sometimes, your hands are tied, and we would love, if we did sell him, we would love him back for a few seasons as part of that deal, just to help him grow, like I say, and to have him would be fantastic, because we've watched him across the season. We've watched him make a few silly mistakes towards the beginning, but actually he's learning from that very quickly. And you're watching him learn and grow on the pitch, it's like nothing I've ever seen. It's amazing to watch his progression every minute, and see how better he gets and how well he adapts to everything. So we don't want him to go, but him going may help the team and the finances.
I think that's the important thing, isn't it? And for anybody that obviously doesn't know what's been going on at Birmingham for a few years, obviously you had all that issue with your owner, Carson Young, going to prison, and obviously since then you seem to have struggled with the EFL, and you've had managers coming and going, and your owner's making very stupid decisions, what seems like at the time. You've had obviously Harry Redknapp coming in and then causing loads of issues with financial fair play. So that's the thing. Whereas clubs would try desperately to keep hold of players in this circumstances, and it's hard anyway. It's even harder for Birmingham to keep a player of Jude Bellingham's talent at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very difficult one, because if people may not be aware, but we were put under a sanction last season, and the EFL have recently appealed a decision against us due to a business plan that we were supposed to follow. We actually did better than the business plan they set out for us to do, and that's why we are being appealed against, because they don't like the fact we did better than what they wanted us to do. It's very complicated, but yeah, it's a weird situation, and we have to obviously think of how we can benefit moving forward, because we have had a tough couple of quite a few years, and we've had to become that selling club rather than that keeping and nurturing club, just to keep everything going, because otherwise, we're in trouble.
It's obviously it's important to talk about why you're here. Obviously, we've spoken a lot throughout this global pandemic. Obviously we've seen the last few days of Liverpool furloughing non-playing staff and having to make a U-turn on that. Obviously, I've said a lot of times, Emily, that this is going to affect the world and it needs to affect football with it. The EFL is something that's going to struggle massively after this, and there's going to be clubs and leagues even that are lost due to this period of time. What do you make of it right now, and how do you think it's going to affect Birmingham? We saw actually Birmingham were one of the first clubs to place staff under the furlough scheme, and am I right in saying players are under it as well?
I think it was a voluntary 50% pay cut that the players said that they would do. I don't know if it's all of them, but our captain came out and said, he was one of the first people to say, I'll take 50% pay cut to help the club. And, that's what you want to see in times like this. I work within the sporting and entertainment industry, so I'm seeing it from lots of different angles. But I think it's quite a difficult one, really, because you don't want to furlough people at clubs, because obviously that's their livelihood. But it's very difficult, and we are all in this together. We are all feeling the impact of this horrendous situation. But I think we've got to be realistic in the fact that things are not going to go back to normal for a very long time. I've thought about it, and I think that there may be repercussions for at least 5 seasons. You never know whether they'll start this season again in, say, July and finish it in September, and then maybe shift the calendar slightly, have more week games in the week. Maybe competitions like the Champions League and the League Cup may be suspended for a few seasons just to help things get back on their feet. But then it's things like the League Cup that bring a lot of finances into the lower league clubs. So it may have to be competitions that prioritise the lower league clubs that are still going, whereas the more Champions League, Europa Leagues may have to be suspended because obviously the finances are a lot more wealthy up at that end of the footballing table. So I think there's going to be a lot of impacts. But hopefully, once football restarts again, then these jobs will be reopened and that side of things will hopefully go back to normal. Because obviously, everyone's going to want to be going to games, so the money will be coming in from that side of things, and sponsorships and things like that. But I think it is a tough one. We've all suffered from it. But I'm just looking forward to football coming back and everyone being healthy, really.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're all together on that. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Emily. That was obviously very good to learn about Jude Bellingham in more detail, and hopefully, we are just watching the start of a star in the making, and whichever path he takes in his career, I think he will become a very good player in the future.
Hope so. Thank you for having me on.
No worries.